Welcome to a Soccer Down Here special report. Time to catch you up on, and it's going to be a bit of a continuing series with USL Championship and USL League One announcing last week their schedules, what the layout is going to be for the restarts in their respective leagues. We know what it's going to take for teams to chase after championships. It could be group stage, it could be teams that are omitted from your normal schedules, and it's a little different in the Championship and USL League One, so this will be our first go-around to catch you up in individual markets when it comes to all of these different approaches, all these different places, what it's been like for them in the pandemic, how they're going to continue to handle things as we go forward, as the United States still deals with COVID-19. Our first stop this go-around is in Birmingham. And time to catch up with President and General Manager of Birmingham Legion FC, Jay Heaps, a friend of the show. And Jay describes what it's like for Birmingham. Remember, Atlanta United fans, we got to see what it means for the Legion to come online at BBVA Field with the exhibition match that happened before the season started. So first up in the batting order this go-around, Jay Heaps in Birmingham.
All right, so Jay, first question is, you've got schedule trickling out. What's it like to finally have a schedule trickling out?
Well, it has been it's amazing just to be a part of the process, and obviously we're mindful of everything that's going on, but this has been a long process, but we're excited to be able to get back to the field, and we've done a lot of work to get there.
So how much work went into it, without giving up as much of the state secrets as you don't want to, unless you want to break news here?
There's not much other than just making sure, when you're going through something like this, and you just, first and foremost, it's fan safety and making sure that you can have games in a way that people can socially distance, wearing masks, making sure that they have plenty of sanitization so that they're safe, as safe as they can be, and then doing it in a way where you're also keeping your players safe, and the return to play protocols are as much risk mitigation as possible. So you're putting that all together. You have different cities going off with different kind of ebbs and flows of positive cases versus trends downward. So landing all that has been really challenging and difficult, and we just want to keep taking those baby steps forward to make sure that we have a season.
It's because you're talking about capacities, and I know in Lewis City they're looking at a certain capacity. I know at BBVA you're looking at a certain capacity there, and I know that there's a lot of tap dancing that has to be done from an administrative standpoint, and you mentioned player safety. You're mentioning all these different things. I mean, there's a lot of work that went into this. Do I even want to ask how thick the protocol is that's on your desk?
Well, just the league protocol, just for the players, I think it's like 50 pages, and then we have our own internal document that's closer to 75 pages just to return to the stadium. So when you start putting those together and making sure that you can plan for so much, and we're doing the best we can, and we're also using the data to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can. I mean, we believed in the mask process, so early on we wanted to make sure that masks were a part of everything we were doing, and just recently, we were ahead of that curve here in Birmingham in the sense that, or in not Birmingham, but in all of Alabama, in the sense that we wanted to make sure that we could do the best we can by mitigating that risk. And so fans, we're going to ask them to wear masks and make sure that they're protecting their fellow fans and doing as much as we can to stop the spread while also putting them in an environment that is safe and clean and be able to view some good soccer as well.
For those that haven't been able to keep up, how have you and the Legion stayed active in the community during the pandemic and being part of the community as well? What have you guys been up to?
Well, that's been one of the things that I think is really unique for a lot of teams in USL, but in particular us, where our players were here. They all live in Birmingham. They all, most of the guys live in an apartment complex together, but they've lived every ebb and flow of the Birmingham, the Birmingham with the pandemic, with the injustice and the social protesting. I mean, they've been a part of that, and I think that really entwines them in the fabric of what's going on in the community. And to start with the pandemic, we did a T-shirt called Birmingham Strong. It did really well, raised a lot of money for Be Ham Strong, which is a great charity here in Birmingham. And then obviously we have players that that have real stories to tell and want to get their voices out for the racial injustice and social change, and we want to be a voice in that and a part of that. So we've had players and assistant coaches really want to get out there and say and do things, and they've been a part of that while we've been here in Birmingham waiting for the season to start. So really unique I think it's one of those where it's going to be, we have to continue to use these moments, and while there's a pause and there's a moment to reflect, we also have to use and make sure that we continue to use the strength that we've gained during this time to push forward.
What do you think of your group?
Off the field, they're awesome, but as importantly, we want to make sure that we're ready to go on the field. So I've been thrilled with the way Tommy Sohn, Connell Smith, our coaching staff have really kept our players up on their toes and really engaged. They've had a lot of interaction, whether it's on Zoom leading into training, and then once we were allowed to do contact training, the guys were ready to go.
And then what the USL Championship has done, it's 4 groups in the West, 4 groups in the East, 4x4, and I think it's a maximum of 16 games total. You guys haven't had one count officially yet. When you look at the other teams in your group, what do you see?
Well, we're staring right at Memphis on day one, and they've, really in the last year become our organic rival in the sense that Birmingham City Football Club took on that cadence, and really, every time Memphis puts something out there, their fans are all over them, and that's an exciting rivalry that builds from just fans interaction, and you really can't control it. You're a club, and you're enjoying that build up. So that's a big one. Then we have Charlotte and North Carolina, which both teams last year we split with, and you're going to play teams that to me both of them got better in the off season, and we got to see them play their first game, and both of them Charlotte won away, and North Carolina lost, but it was a very good matchup. So those, when you're looking at that, the 4 of us, those are really, similar. We all try to play. It's similar in how we go about the game. All 4 teams are coached really well, so that'll be a good challenge, a good tactics going forward. When you play each other 4 times, there's a lot to move around in there.
Is there one thing that concerns you about the return more than anything else, or do you think that the protocols, if adhered to all 120 plus pages, whether league or legion or both, if you're reading those 120 pages, adhering to those 120 pages, everything will be fine, or is there something still out there that concerns you?
I think I'm always concerned. I think you can draw out any plan you want, and something can change, and something can alter. So we've done the best we can to mitigate that risk, but there's still risk. It's like going to the grocery store is still a risk, even though I'm wearing if I'm wearing a mask and I'm socially distancing and I'm washing my hands and washing my groceries, all of those things, there's still risk involved, even though I'm doing everything I can to mitigate that risk. So I think there's a really good chance we're gonna see some positive tests, and we're gonna have to be able to adapt and make sure that it's really that tracing back and making sure that it's contained. That's a really important part of this. You can't do everything you can. You do everything you can to avoid it, but if it does happen, which has been kind of the history of this, is that everyone kind of at some point is going to be exposed to it. What do you do to isolate and make sure that it doesn't spread even further within your group and within your team?
Next up, it is a trip to North Carolina FC, and what we do now is get to catch up with Stephen Miller. Stephen's been on the network a couple of times to give his perspective as to what it's like for players to be a part of the process and what it's like for him to be one of the stalwarts at North Carolina FC. So being able to catch up with Stephen, we get the point of view from the players as to what it's like to be prepared for USL Championship and its return. So here's our interview with Stephen Miller of North Carolina FC.
So how does it feel to have a schedule out finally?
Feels good. It's like first day of school. We're really excited to get going.
And when you looked at the groups and how things were laid out, where most of the groups, it's 8 groups, most 4, one with 5. When you looked at the layout of your group, what did you see?
Obviously we're happy we're in a group of 4, but honestly we're a little bit disappointed with our group just because of the travel and who we had in it. Birmingham and Memphis are pretty far away, and we kind of felt like we have a bunch of clubs, Charleston, Loudoun, Atlanta, all so much closer than those clubs, and we kind of got lumped into a group with, further travel than we would have hoped. But, that's the way it works, and we're looking forward to getting going.
So when you look at the logistics for something like this, I know that logistics are a part of it, I know protocols are a part of it, and in catching up with Jay Heaps, he said that the USL brick of protocols, I guess, for lack of a better word, is probably like 60 or 70 pages or 50, and then he had another one for team. How big are these bricks that you're having to pay attention to going forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of protocol, and the league was great about it, to be honest. I think you need to kind of you need to build from something and have it really spelled out for guys. So I actually think the league was really detailed in what they did, and I think it was like 47 pages for ours that we had, and there was additional stuff there. But with so many moving parts and so many regions and locations, you have to try your best to standardize everything. And in order to do that, you have to be as detailed as possible. And there's, things that go down to as far as when you're on the road, wiping down hotel door handles, stuff like that, which is, something you would never even think about. But I think in something like this, the more structure and detail, the better. You could definitely see that there's a lot of thought that went into it, so I think that was really good.
Is there anything that still concerns you, even with all of these protocols that are laid out in front of you, either on paper or flash drive or in person?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to be concerned just because of the uncertainty of everything. This virus we just don't know anything about it still, however many months in we are. So you look at all the media and everything, and you still can't get a grip of it. So there's definitely some nerves, but player safety is first, and we can control what we can control. And then there is we are taking a risk. Every time we travel, we fly somewhere, we get in a bus, and we stay in hotels. You're always going to be taking a risk. The idea is to minimize that risk and to feel comfortable and good about it, as good as you can. And I think right now the idea of playing is definitely helping with that. Talk to us in the middle of August, and you have a bunch of games in a short amount of time on the road, and then maybe we'll feel a little bit different. But right now, I think we're all really excited to get back out there, and that's kind of maybe giving us some brighter eyes looking at this going forward.
What's the feedback been like from the guys, whether it's from the rest of the administration, the front office, the players, anybody involved in the day-to-day? What's the feedback been like about getting back to things?
Yeah, I think it's the players. We've all been wanting to get back for a while, and it's been kind of a long process of just kind of going through step-by-step progressing, and finally being able to get into contact stuff has been great in the past week. But you look at it from a front office standpoint, you see how many question marks there are, and it's very difficult to try to plan something when you are jumping through a million hoops, and there's financial issues and there's health issues. And so, I only can speak for the players, and we're excited to get back out there. I can also imagine how difficult it is for the front office and ownership.
When it comes to these next steps, I know that now that folks are getting press releases and things like that about scheduling and where you're going to be and who your at-larges are going to be as a part of your schedule. When it comes to what you've done as a team in the pandemic, for those that haven't had the chance to take a look at what North Carolina FC has done, what have you guys been able to do in the community to continue to stay as rooted and as involved as you've been even when games are going on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It's obviously been difficult just because we're not present, we're not out there in front of people and being seen on a weekly basis. And with that, we generally have appearances every week that have been canceled and haven't been able to do that. But, we've tried as players to, I think, maybe a month or two ago, we did kind of a takeout night where all of us went to one of our local sponsors and took out food, and we posted on social media, and the club has done a good job of actually bringing us closer to the fans by doing this at-home kind of series where they interview a guy from home and on Zoom and ask questions and have kind of a deeper understanding for fans to get to know the players a little bit better. But it has been a little bit difficult to maintain that feel that you are impacting the community as much as maybe you are during the season.
What, other than the obvious things, are you looking forward to the most? Obviously, schedule's out, games are coming, restarts coming, but is there one thing that you're looking forward to the most, even with all of these protocols in place, with all these concerns that we all face in the day-to-day? Is there one thing that you're looking forward to the most about restarting?
Other than just playing games, getting back out there and competing. No, I think a lot of us feel the same. We've kind of had a little bit of a loss of purpose over the past few months. So for me personally, that's huge mentally to kind of gain that back. And that's something I'm looking forward to and working towards quarantine. And this whole pandemic has been really difficult mentally. So yeah, obviously we're looking forward to playing games. But I think just kind of getting back into a routine that isn't just sitting at home, working out on your own. Getting back into that routine where you're actually competing and playing and working towards something is what I'm probably looking forward to most.
Good to hear from the midfielder. We'll be looking forward to seeing what it's going to be like for North Carolina FC in that same group with Birmingham Legion, as they're also paired with Memphis 901 and with the Charlotte Independents. Next up, it is a trip to the front office again, and we get to catch up with Brad Estes. Brad Estes is president for Lou City, Louisville City FC, and it's going to be a very special time for the team president, for everyone associated with Lou City, as they get ready to unveil Lynn Family Stadium on national television. We get into that in our conversation with Brad and find out what else is going on up there at Lou City. So here is our catching up with Brad Estes, team president, Lou City.
So does it feel like you are this close to getting back out there on the pitch, or does it still feel far away?
It's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. I think it feels very, very close when you look at the list of things that has to be done. And it feels far away probably when you look at that list too, because you know everything that has to get done in order to get back out on the field. It's been a crazy few months. It's been a crazy year, really. And we're just excited to be able to get out there and open our stadium. We were supposed to do it on April 11th, and we feel fortunate and privileged to be able to have fans in our stadium on Sunday, July 12th, and I can't wait to do it.
The video that the team has put out through the social media has been absolutely tremendous. When you see that in its promotional state and knowing what you want it to be as that cornerstone for soccer in the United States, what's it like to see that come to fruition, knowing that it wasn't that long ago when you broke ground, but now you're this close to actually having it as a part of the fabric?
Yeah, so I guess the overwhelming emotion for me is just gratitude. It's a perfect storm of great performance on the field by our team. The support from our fans was here even before we had a team, okay? So there's two prongs, and then you have the support from your local government. And so for all that to come together in really a fast amount of time, for us to be able to put this beautiful stadium out there, you're just really grateful, and you feel very fortunate to be a part of it. And candidly, we hope that other markets similar size to us can see that and can be motivated to invest in their community, because you don't have to be Atlanta United to have a stadium that you can be proud of.
Do you have a master key to get into the place?
I do. I got one about a week ago. I kept having to ask every time I went over there to do a tour, and I was like, hang on a second, I bet somebody around here has a key that I could use. They're like, yeah, here's a key, take the key. So yeah, I can get you anywhere you want to go.
I was going to say, and have you already made a copy that you've put in your desk drawer either at home or in an office as a backup in case you leave it at home?
I may or may not have made a few copies and sold them. Yeah, so that's a different kind of premium seating. Yeah, so it is funny though that you think about, why did it take me this long to ask for a key, and I did, and lo and behold, I had it within 30 minutes.
What's the coolest thing about that new barn?
For me, it's not one thing; it's a collection of things, because we are a community organization, and so there's many different types of people, many different socioeconomic backgrounds, and so we have 2 safe standing areas where you can pay a very reasonable price and come in and jump up and down and cheer for your club. We have Lowe's boxes and ledge tables and club seats and suites for those that have more expensive tastes. And then we have regular chair backs for regular Joes like you and I that want to go sit and enjoy the game. It's been specifically designed to maximize the fan experience. The seats are as close to the touch line and the byline as allowed by FIFA regulations, and so there's no bad seat counts.
When it comes to the growth of the sport there in what you would consider to be your footprint of Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, does it surprise you at times how it has grown the way that it has, to where you're piecing together mid-8-figure stadia in your hometown to help continue to build the sport, basically?
I don't think I'm surprised. We are a sports town. I think we are a town that has long been very devoted to the University of Louisville or the University of Kentucky, depending on where your allegiance lies. But it's a town that's been starved for professional sports. And so I'm not surprised that it's taken off the way that it has, but I'm a perfect example. When I started working for the club in 2016, I didn't know that the team existed. We had played a year and a half at that point, went to the conference finals in the first year, and I didn't know that we had a team. And you've seen people like me gravitate to this sport and really make it their number one thing that they do.
One of the things that I think a lot of folks who aren't in your footprint don't understand or don't realize or don't see on a daily basis is how Lou City has been a part of the fabric of the community, even though there are no matches being played. What's it been like to see the team respond the way that it has to the community and continue to be as integral a part as you have in this process?
Well, I mean, it's been very intentional, right? When we worked with COVID specifically, we had some discussions internally. We knew that we wouldn't be able to keep everyone busy for that whole time. Obviously, it would have been in bad taste for salespeople to be calling trying to sell. So we decided to focus even more of our attention on the community, on our relationships with our sponsors and our fans. So we started, the sales guys started picking up the phone and calling and just checking on people and say, hey, we just want to know we're thinking about you. How are you doing? Anything we can do to help you? And we migrated away from that to picking up trash in the neighborhoods, delivering meals through Kentucky Refugee Ministries and some other local organizations. And so, for us, we always try to make every decision in our club based on the long term, based on the infinite game. And so, we don't want to make decisions based on the next 3 months' cash flow. We want to make decisions that are going to impact the value of our club and the value of our community over the next 10, 20, 50, 100 years.
Is there one thing that concerns you the most about the restart, that whether it's community-based or on the field-based or day-to-day operations? Is there one thing that stands out that concerns you the most when it comes to restart?
I think, like most things in life, what you worry about is the unknown. I was taught very early on in business that there are known unknowns and there are unknown unknowns, and you obviously try to isolate the ones that you know about, but we're just in a period right now where there's a lot of uncertainty, and so we feel like we have a very good plan in place to open our stadium. We feel like our partners at ASM Global are the world leaders in running sports facilities. So we feel good about that, but you just don't know what you don't know relative to how the virus is going to spread in other states. So we feel good about the way we've managed it here. We've had great leadership in our state relative to the management of COVID-19. But again, I think it's just not knowing until you do it, and we are fully aware that on Sunday, July 12th at 5 p.m. on ESPN2, we will be the first nationally televised sporting event that has fans in its home stadium. And it's daunting, but we accept the challenge.
How big is that to-do list on the whiteboard attached to your fridge to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch on that date?
It's big, but we have a good team. Feel good about it. Like I said, ASM Global has been great for us, and we have a good team of people on our staff. We were supposed to open the building in April. So in some ways we've had a little bit more time to get ready. But you're cautiously optimistic is probably the way I would refer to my emotions right now. We have a lot of work to do, but I feel good that we're going to go.
And at the same time, other news came out with NWSL Louisville that PNC Bank is going to hang out with you.
That's right. Yeah, great great bank, nationally here. We've had some discussions with them about sponsorships ongoing for a while, and when the NWSL announcement came, they were very keen to embrace that. So we're really excited to have them as a partner.
Now it's time to drift into League One for one team's perspective, and first up it is John Miglarese, head coach of South Georgia Tormenta. And for those that have been listening to the show and what we posted on the network, you know all about the efforts that have been going on in the community for Tormenta to keep them as a part of the fabric and the framework. We get into that with Coach, but also what it's like to have a schedule announced, a grid announced, and all of the mechanisms associated with coming back to play in League One scheduled for the week after the USL Championship.
A very interesting 5 months. First month and a half was very normal, and we had some really good results in some of our friendlies and some good performances, and I felt like we were building a competitive group. And then, like I said the other day in another interview, the world seemed to kind of stop turning, and now we're trying to provide an environment for these guys where they feel safe, that they can go to work. And it's not all about just X's and O's and your basic details and managing a culture. There's a whole nother layer of things that we have to manage as a club, and we welcome that as a challenge. And I think our front office, our owners, and coaching staff, we've all done a good job, and we're hoping for the best.
How much of a challenge has it been for you personally? Because you're not just being a coach, you're there as a mentor, as a guidepost, as someone who's learning yourself on the fly about everything from CDC guidelines to, what to do in public and distancing and all this kind of stuff. How much of a learning experience has it been for you?
For me as a coach, I've never prioritized the player over the person. The person's always been a priority over what kind of footballer they are. So in terms of having to change anything in that mindset, that hasn't changed. And that's how I've always been. That's how I always will be. However, when you throw in, when you look at risk assessments to a player in a normal world, we're used to dealing with those kind of risks, different distractions, injuries, things like that. This is a whole other layer of potential risks to these players. Now, everybody thinks they're a virologist these days, or nobody knows exactly what's happening with this disease, but the research states that our players within the 21 to 29-year-old age group very fit and healthy, and there's not a lot of physical risk to these guys. I don't think they're as much in danger if they catch COVID-19. However, the social responsibilities and making sure that we're not transmitting it, making sure that we're washing our hands before we go to the water cooler, and that they have their own water bottles, and we're social distancing constantly all the time, and that we're not doing anything within that puts us in a situation where we're being socially responsible. It is a headache, but we've got good people, we've got good players, we've got a great front office, and great ownership that's on top of it, and I think we're going to be okay.
And at the same time, you've still been active in the community. There have been efforts that have been done to help out those less fortunate. There's been the efforts with the NAACP, with Black Lives Matter. You guys have still been integral to the community there, not just in Statesboro, Bullitt County, but that entire footprint that you guys have been a part of.
Yeah, I think that's what we set out to do at the very beginning, prior to me getting here, and I got here about a year after this had started. I think we've always been community-minded. We want to inspire people locally, our immediate market, through the game of soccer, how we play, but more importantly, who we are and how we represent ourselves as human beings and citizens. And I think we have a responsibility to do that. We have a youth academy under us. We're holding our guys as flag bearers, if you will, on the first team, how we play the game, how they handle themselves, what kind of character they display. When we have 12, 13, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds watching them, and we can reference them to the young player. I think it all matters, every single bit of it. The social part of what we've been seeing in social media, these protests, how we've handled ourselves during that, how we've handled ourselves during COVID-19, is a reflection of who we are as a club, and I'm proud of what we've done so far, and I expect us to continue to not just survive, but try to thrive in this environment if possible.
League Board of Governors comes out, late this week. New format for the second season, 20 games, 15 weeks, and you have an omitted opponent, which was something that the league thought of when it came to travel and keeping budgets in mind. Obviously, Toronto FC2 not on the schedule, but Red Wolves are your regional rival. Twice home, twice away, 7 other clubs home and home to make your schedule. What did you think about the idea of this sprint that it's going to be here in League One?
I hope this doesn't sound like a curt answer, but I don't care if we play the same team 20 times. I don't. At this point, these guys need games. This is USL 1. This is still very much of a development league. We've set up a scenario for them that they can grow here, and then they can express themselves in the shop window of professional soccer. And they need games. And my greatest concern all along was them not having the ability to play games this year in order for them to express themselves and do what they love to do. And frankly, I don't. Who we play, at this point, it's just not something I'm worried about at all. They're all good teams. They're all going to have their own challenges. We're going to focus on us, and wherever we have to go and whoever comes here, we don't care at this point. We want these guys to have games.
What did you think about the 5 subs?
Mixed feelings, really. In so many ways, I get it. In so many ways, it's going to be interesting. It is a bit of a game changer for teams that have a lot of depth. They'll be able to throw some guys in there, but I think also with the safety of the players, when you look at, we've had these guys going non-contact small groups for almost 2 months, and then we started contact training this week. And we'll only have 2 more weeks of contact training before the game start. That's not a lot of time to get the team ready. So having that 4th and 5th sub to make sure we're not pushing a player too far beyond his reach so he injures himself, that's helpful. But at the same time, there's a tradition of just having 3 subs and playing your cards right, and the tactical battle that comes with that. It could change a few things. So I'll tell you what, ask me 5 games in, I'll have a better answer for
you. What is it, when all of this announcement and then paperwork and protocols have come across the board, what's it like having to look at these bricks of documents that are basically war and peace when it comes to engagement now? It's like, I'm sure the league has their 60-page set of protocols, and I'm sure that Tormenta has your own set of protocols that might be an inch thick. What's it like having to know all about all this stuff and ingest all this material to make sure that everything is as safe as possible?
Well, it's 47 pages to be exact. Well, the good news is we have lots of people reading those manuals. It's not just me. It's not just the staff. We've got operations on it. We've got our ownership on it. Everybody, even the players, are taking responsibility for it. It's really up to the personal responsibility of each player and each person associated with Tormenta FC to know those manuals and protocols inside and out, because nobody wants any kind of transmission happening. But I think this is a good group of people that are going to do the right thing and do everything they can do within their control to make sure that we're not any way promoting the spread of COVID-19, internally and externally. And I think we're doing a good job of that. However, the testing system across the world isn't perfect. Our guys can do everything right. We can do everything right, and the transmission can happen even if we do everything right. So I think we're going to do everything within our control to mitigate every risk possible and hopefully have a good season.
Serious question to finish up our conversation this go-around. When it comes to your July 4th meal, what are the mandatory things that have to be a part of it?
See, I'm from the low country of South Carolina, and for me, it's got to be seafood. It's got to be seafood. Low country broil, fish sandwich, and then you throw in, your basic burgers and hot dogs, maybe. But if people are shucking oysters and peeling shrimp, then I'm in the right place. And unfortunately, I'm not sure we'll pull that off this year. we'll have to ship that in somehow. But that's That's what it is for me.
Then we go from the pitch to the front office, and as always, when we get to catch up with Darin Van Tassel and get to hear from the front office perspective of South Georgia Tormenta, someone who's been building it from absolute day one, along with Miss Nitra. President Darin Van Tassel for South Georgia Tormenta, friend of the show, friend of the network, and it's also great to get his perspectives as well when it comes to what's coming up with the 20-game schedule in USL League One. All right, since my last question with Coach dealt with the upcoming weekend, I'll make it your first one. Your mandatory menu for a July 4th meal is what?
Brats and my mother's potato salad. It's just delicious, and you can't have enough of that. I like when the sweet corn is coming out too in this part of the state of Georgia. If you can get some sweet corn with salt and butter on that, that's a good evening. That's a good afternoon for me.
Okay, because being a low country guy, he was low country boil and stuff like that. So he was all kinds of fired up.
Yeah, he's got Charleston blood throughout. So I know that will be his preference. And by the way, low country boil is delicious.
No doubt. The word came out from the league that it is now going to be a different kind of sprint. It's 20 games, 15 weeks, top two make it to the League One final. What did you think about when that came out?
Well, I was on the task force and the governor's call. We've been doing this collectively, so we weren't just waiting on the league to make that announcement. We were part of the construction of that whole announcement. It's been a team effort throughout this whole thing. We've been meeting several times a week since mid-March. I can tell you the owners and the presidents probably know each other better now than we would over the next 15 years. Had it not happened, it's compromised. It's imperfect. Our season's imperfect. Our protocols, as good as they are to keep us all healthy, I think are imperfect. But that's how we're going to move forward. I will say this. I think they're better than not playing. And it's better. We're keeping everybody safer than they are in the general community. So as a league, I'm pleased where we are, and I'm glad we're talking about winning championships. But we got to win championships and keep everybody healthy all at once.
And at the same time, I thought that obviously there were things put in for budgetary reasons because you don't know market by market what protocols are going to be. Are there going to be fans? I know there's the hope in the USL, especially with the announcement in Louisville with what Governor Brashear is allowing in the state of Kentucky and what we're hearing out of the state of Utah with Real Monarchs, that there is the hope in USL markets that there will be fans around. Now, with not knowing capacities and what it could mean and things like that, you're also getting into regionality and cutting travel costs down with the assigned rival. Tormenta had Toronto FC2 omitted from the schedule because last time I checked, the timetables from Toronto to Statesboro, they're kind of scant when it comes to direct flights for things like that. And so there are situations, and each team has an omitted opponent. So I understand. And there was a lot of budgetary thought that went into all of this, too.
No question. And budgetary and less travel equates to budgetary kinds of concerns. But it was really on the travel piece had much more to do with minimizing travel than it did budget on those particular items, I think. We get to play our rivals in Chattanooga 4 times. We're looking forward to that. We probably need to name a cup or something for those 4 games between the two of us. We're not going to play Toronto this year. And we're doing the best we can with asterisks next to it. Here's the thing. There's really, I think the narrative can be told in a couple ways. One is we're doing everything we can given the circumstances. But I think the other narrative is we've got a chance to demonstrate in some role modeling about how you get to do both. How you can, pro sports can happen, and we keep folks safe given what we're learning from the medical folks and what we know about COVID at the moment. Our fans, we're going to keep them safe too. One of the reasons we get to keep them safe because we just don't get to put that many of them into our stands. So what the league has said, it will defer to the state's roles, and the state said in Georgia that we can play pro sports, depending on what the league says. So we will be social distancing. Our groups have to be 6 feet apart from each other, and if we do that, I think the fan experience will be different, but we will still have a fan experience to do. And I know you, like the rest of the planet, will be tuning in to all those games on the broadcast anyway.
And I know that there are meetings upon meetings upon meetings about trying to figure out how this is going to look from a game day perspective, because you're looking at all of these different things. It's no longer, okay, here's a ticket, you hand the ticket to the ticket taker, and you just kind of sit there, and it's like you wander in and you're going to do what you're going to do. I mean, there's order that has to be laid out, and I know that this is a challenge from a game day perspective to figure out, okay, how do we have fans involved, have adhere to the protocols that the league and the states have put together. I mean, this is a hell of a juggling act.
It's a big puzzle, isn't it? Here's a reminder to everybody listening, and you probably already said it, John, is that the USL is the first pro sports league to come back, be in home stadiums, and have fans being possible. Now, not every market is going to be able to do that, but most of ours are. The NBA is not doing that. Major League Baseball is not doing that. MLS is not doing it to start with. The NHL is not doing it. Even the PGA is not doing it. They could probably do it a little bit easier than the rest of us could. And so with that going first comes responsibility. We have taken that responsibility very seriously. We will probably be imperfect at it, and we've got to have the help of our fans to make it happen. I know we're getting the franchises, the cooperation from our players and the front office and our coaches is immense. And it's really been fascinating to watch how people are really making not just good choices, but safe choices that keep the franchise in order since we've been in lockdown in March. And we're going to be going first. So let's hope we've got this thing right, because I think we'll be a really good role model. There'll be moments where we're going to have positive test cases, we think, and we've got ways to mitigate that should it happen. And again, I think we have the confidence of the doctors in terms of this. Listen, there's definite risk, but I think the risk is lower for our players and our fans being at the games and being in the world that they're in than it is in the larger community. It's a higher risk to go to the grocery store and to do all those things, because we put in ways to try to mitigate it. It's not zero risk. There's no question about that, but we have done the kinds of things to mitigate it. I think we're going to be able to, it's a different experience. TV has never been so important to our sport, and I remain hopeful and resolute that we're going to do a good job for game day experiences. I think it's a really important time, and we got an opportunity to do it well.
What's your biggest concern? And I'm not necessarily talking about you as an owner. It's more about you as the person. What is your biggest concern going forward in all of this?
We are in the middle of a global pandemic, and that's real, and it's hitting people hard. I lost a classmate this morning. I just found out, John, who died due to COVID-19, and that's personal. But I do think we also have a responsibility to the larger community to go to work, to be able to do the things that we can do and to do it safely. I don't wish anybody to get it, and if we have a positive test case, I guess I have a concern that we've done our protocols in place properly so that we can mitigate it. I think we all fear for all the other teams. We want to keep those environments safe. And we are reliant upon the choices of others. So there's a good deal of this that's outside of our control. You can stay up late at night worrying about the things you can't control, but for this to work, it has to have a collective response. That level of cooperation is high. It's right on top of us. But without that collective response, some of this breaks down, doesn't it? So that's, I don't know if that's a fear, but I think that's the biggest variable.
One of the things also that you and Ms. Nitra have built from absolute zero is the idea of engagement, of anyone that was going to put on the Tormenta magenta, whether it's a T-shirt, a golf shirt, or a jersey, was going to be a part of the community. And you guys have been at the forefront of it, being engaged this entire time, reminding folks that even though we're not playing and we're still in the middle of a pandemic, we're still a part of the community. And I think that that's also been something that has been really cool that you guys have been able to hang your hat on this entire time.
That's very kind of you to say. It is definitely the culture that we want to be a part of, both because it makes us feel good, but it's also, a very self-interested kind of thing, because you just don't get to grow things without that buy-in. Here's something anecdotally I think that's helpful to hear. So like so many sports teams, with the announcement of the return to play, we did send out something to all of our season ticket holders that said, hey, listen, if you guys need to, you've already paid for your season tickets, you can completely defer it to next year. We're only going to have 10 home games instead of, our normal package, which included exhibition and League Two games, is, more than 20. Not a single person has asked to have those tickets moved forward or for a refund. They said, we believe in what you're doing, we want to keep supporting it. Now, John, that might still happen, of course, but I think it says a lot. Our fans want to be part of how we figure this out as well. There is great solace in knowing that we're not just making decisions in our offices that don't impact others. Is sports going to fix the problems of a global health crisis? Oh my God, we're definitely not going to fix the problem of global health crisis, but we also have a job that our guys get to go to, that we get to be a part of, that helps us mitigate what our health concerns are by following something that speaks to the community. We are representative of Statesboro and South Georgia and parts of the Low Country of South Carolina. We get to carry that flag as well, and that's a responsibility we relish, we cherish it, and we're about to get started here in just a little over 2 weeks and start doing it.
What are the next things on the dry erase board on the fridge that folks need to know about when it comes to the return?
Well, the schedule is going to get made public here shortly. We do anticipate being at home that first on July 18th. And so we're going to have to announce that. Just the mechanics of, listen, if we're going to go from being able to hold 4,000 to just 400 or 500 is where we think we're going to land, then every day is going to be at capacity. I won't call it a sellout, John, but every game will be at capacity.
Allowed capacity.
So that is, the mechanics of that are going to be new for us, and letting folks, we got to figure out who gets to come in and who doesn't. Clearly, season ticket holders get to come in first. The general public afterward. The timing of those things are a formula that matters, and we've got to put it together. We need lots of patience, for it all, because as soon as we clear the dry erase board, there's going to be another one going up in here. But here's the other thing. Folks want us to get it right. They want to be a part of it too. And patience, I think, is something we've all learned to have a little bit more of right now.
Last stop this go-around, Charleston Battery. Friend of the show, friend of the network, and co-host of Charleston Battery Weekly, the play-by-play voice of the Charleston Battery, Poppy Miller. And this go-around, what we decided to do was catch up with Poppy about stuff off the field and what it's like, once again, getting into the communities. The change in venue, remember, no longer at MUSC Health Stadium, the Battery are. They've moved in town to the College of Charleston and the Patriots Point Soccer Complex. We get into that with her, as well as a couple of other things when it comes to the Battery and their return to, and their restart to the USL Championship and their return to the downtown area. Now that the schedule's out, how do you feel?
I think everybody is just so excited to finally see some matches on paper. It's been highly anticipated for the last couple of weeks now, and to say, kick off really well and truly is just around the corner. it's nice to have some matches to really look forward to and pen in your calendar, especially for you and I as well, to get back to calling matches.
Yeah, looking at the schedule with proximity involved, Charleston and Atlanta United 2, Patriots Point July 24th, and then the return fixture on August 15th at Patriots Point as well. And I mean, that's just it's a small part of the whole thing, but what's it been like for you personally to see the guys, out there, getting ready and the anticipation amongst the guys themselves, and then I'll get into the other off-the-field stuff, but what's the initial reaction been like from the guys?
It's been great to be out at practice. I think especially, as we've seen the guidelines change over the past couple of weeks, you had that first initial stage where they were just happy to be back outside, to be off the Zoom call, to be all back together. And even though it was separated groups all around the field and socially distanced, I think it was special for them to feel a sense of, okay, we're coming back, baby steps, one step at a time. And then obviously recently they've been able to do full team practice, so the intensity has just been so good, and getting to in a squad against each other and really try and get that match fitness back, because I think at this point that is the most important thing, and that's something that you can never really get from training. You and I both know how hot it is in the south, and I think that really will play a factor in the season that we have ahead. And it's always tricky, the climate plays a big role in it. So I think one, just being back together, getting the chemistry going, and two, really looking at the match fitness and looking where can we go from here and how can we keep going up in a safe way, because we all know that it's difficult, it's a lot physically, but when you look at the schedule, obviously now everybody has it, these things really are going to come thick and fast. So now really is crunch time, and it must be difficult for the players because nobody likes pre-season and they've almost had to do it twice. But now with the schedule coming out, they really have something to set their sights on and set their goals on, and I think that makes a really big difference.
And earlier in the show, I was talking to John Miglarese from South Georgia Tormenta, and USL is undergoing the same notion of the 5 subs that we're seeing across the board. And we've seen it in the European theater, and we're going to see it in USL. And John was admittedly torn about the notion of having the 5 subs because of, conditioning being an aspect of it, and then you're looking at the other elements that are involved. So it could be, he says, ask him after his 5th match how he feels about 5 subs, but there's a motion from Coach Miglarese that, I understand it because of conditioning and other things, but at the same time, we're used to 3. What's your vibe on 5 subs?
I think when you look at it, if you look at it from, if you, for example, introduced 5 subs last season, I think everyone would have a completely different opinion, and everyone would be like, yes, we're used to 3 subs, having 5 subs can completely change the game. We've seen some coaches all over the world use it very differently. Some people are even putting 5 in at the same time, and obviously apart from the goalkeeper, that's half the squad change. But you look at how quickly these matches are going to come. We've talked about the weather being a big factor. But, there's so much going on right now, and I think it's really easy to forget that obviously player safety is the most important thing, and the safety of the entire team. So just having that flexibility, I think, is going to be really important and something that each team can just rely on. And it'll be also interesting to see how the coaches utilize that. And I think sometimes we'll see a completely different lineup going from game to game and a lot of rotation to the squad. So when you mix that rotation with coming in, and not necessarily knowing how each team is going to return to play and how the chemistry will be, I think it really puts it all up in the air. So each game can be completely different tactically. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, especially in the USL.
The other thing that I wanted to get into about movement on the pitch is the move from MUSC Health to Patriots Point. What's it been like to see Patriots Point come online, knowing that it was a new home and the idea from the new ownership to bring it in closer to town and have it be a focal point for the Charleston community? What's it been like to see Patriots Point come online?
one of the things that we always say as a club is the best thing about the Charleston Battery is that it's 25 years old, and that also can be the worst thing about the Charleston Battery, because football in America is modernizing every single season. And so I think for the Battery, they were so ready for that new chapter and to start a new beginning. And Patriots Point really is shaping up to be a fantastic location. You look at the background, you've got the Ravenel Bridge there, you can see the USS Yorktown, you can see the water just stepping behind. And for me, it's been really exciting to see the stadium come together, and it's been great to feed off the team energy as well. Rob has been out there every single day. Staff, distance have been putting up some of the banners. The players have even been doing a piece. So you really have, as cliche as it sounds, you've seen the community kind of come together. And especially being at the College of Charleston, it's a special place for a lot of people on the team, even for Mike Anhauser, who's had a close relationship with the College of Charleston over the years, and, Leland Archer, Nico Rittmeyer, who have played there, and now get to go back to Patriots Point in a new setting where it's really modern, you're looking at what's coming, and I think it's just a shame because we haven't had that home game under our belt yet, so nobody has really felt how it's going to be. And, the reality is we may not feel that for this season either, depending on, what happens with the guidelines. But I think just overall, when we can, it's going to be absolutely packed. It's going to be a great atmosphere there, and it's in one of the most picture-perfect locations in town. So we're really looking forward to it, and I think it's a really exciting, fresh, new chapter for the Battery as well, especially after all the rebranding and everything that has come around the club, and seeing people wear the Battery branding in Charleston as well is really, really great. And to see the Battery logos in different bars and restaurants as well. I can't wait to see this city get behind the scenes.
You mentioned that, and this is the other thing that I wanted to get into you about is just because there isn't any action going on the pitch doesn't mean that there isn't any action going on in the community. What's it been like for you to see the Battery from a team standpoint still be active in the Charleston community? Say, we're still here, we're still a part of the fabric of what's been going on. We haven't gone anywhere. We're here with you through all of this. What's that been like to see?
I think, I have to give so much credit to the players for how they've been during this time. It's never easy. They're not getting the rewards that they get from playing on the pitch and getting to really, do their job and do what they love most. On the other hand, they've been absolutely brilliant about staying connected with fans, using their social media platforms, going on local news, radio, doing their community pieces, really doing what they can. We had a trivia night, which was great, with some of the regiment and some of the other fans, and a couple of players even wanted to join that. So I think that just speaks volumes about how much the players want to be involved. And then as far as just doing, I think in the world in general, it's, we've had so much heavy news with everything that's happened, corona related, and so for the players to be able to also shine some light, and whether it's, making the perfect smoothie as some of the players did, or really trying to keep the community fit with Fitness Fridays. They've been coming up with new ways to get themselves out there. So it's been really great for us to kind of enter this new world where we're taking things online, and we're having to do Zoom interviews, and they were having to do Zoom workouts. So I think they've really took it in their stride, and it's only going to make coming back that much sweeter.
Most importantly, and here are the two most hard-hitting questions before we wrap up. One, do you have a set of keys to Patriots Point?
You know what, I don't actually, but thinking about it, I definitely should, shouldn't I? No, I don't at the minute, but hopefully once everything gets back underway and we're back up, I think at the minute it's just so important to keep everybody, as away and as distanced as possible. But definitely down the road, I'll look to have my own set of keys.
Because I asked Brad Estes of Lou City if he had his own key to get himself into Lynn family whenever he needed to, and he said, "Yes, I do." He'd gone in the first couple of times, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I think I need a key." And so he got a key for himself to get into Lynn family whenever he needs. And I felt like I needed to ask you that same question, knowing how you're the voice of the Charleston Battery. Now, the hardest hitting question of them all. Your July 4th United States Independence Day meal necessities are what?
Oh, that's such a good one. One of my favorite things about America is the food. And I will say this as well. When I got to the States, I was blown away at the free refills. You know, you have a soda out at dinner, and I could not wrap my head around that they just kept refilling it. So, one, I think I'll definitely be enjoying chips and dip. But two, I just love how all out everybody goes here. I think, you know, there's always a spread, you know, there's always drinks, sodas, everything you can imagine. So for me, I would have to say I'm a big hot dog fan every now and again as well. You know, not something that you can eat every day, but I really do enjoy a hot dog. So maybe a hot dog and a big ice cold soda.
What she said. See, there's nothing wrong with that, absolutely. And I know that as the season goes along, we'll be talking about stuff in the Sky Bet Championship, in addition in the EFL to what's going on with the USL. As always, Poppy, how do folks keep an eye on you and everything Charleston Battery? Blatant plug alert.
Yes, so Charleston Battery is on Twitter at Chaz_Battery and on Instagram at Charleston Battery, and I'm on Twitter at _Poppy Miller and on Instagram at Poppy Miller 3.
That is the first look of everything that is going on in the USL Championship in League One. Thanks to all our guests. Thanks to Poppy Miller. Thanks to Jay Heaps of Birmingham Legion. Thanks to Stephen Miller, North Carolina FC. Thanks to Brad Estes, Lou City. And dipping into League One, thanks to owner and president of South Georgia Tormenta, Darin Tassel, and head coach John Miglarese. We'll continue doing these as we get up closer to the beginning of the restart in both USL Championship and USL League One. Poppy, thanks for hanging out with us and being the anchor, running the anchor leg for this particular show.
Thanks so much, John. It's been great, as always.
For all the guests and all the different markets, thanks for hanging out with us on Soccer Down Here. Don't forget to download the app, available iOS and Android. Follow us at soccerdownhere.net and on Twitter and on Instagram at Soccer Down Here. Play it safe, everybody. We'll see you next time.